Call to order then the Thursday, October 8th, 2020 Watertown Board of Adjustment meeting. Can I get a roll call?
Aletsky,
Present.
Dolly,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Brink is absent. Hanson is absent. And Spire, absent. Kays,
Here.
Culhane,
Here.
Dargits, Johnson.
Here.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item 3 is the approval of the minutes from the September 24th, 2020 meeting. I'll need a motion and a second on that.
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
A motion to approve and a second. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, then we'll go ahead and take a vote. Can we do a roll call vote, Stacy?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Aletsky,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Kays,
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Culhane,
Yes.
and Dargits, Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, they are approved.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4 on the agenda is a regular agenda. Item A is a conditional use. Conditional use in the C3 Highway Commercial District. You want to take us through that, Stacy?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to bring up the map here. Okay. So Sodat Construction LLC is the applicant and the owner. This is a vacant piece of property. It is south of 8th Avenue Southwest between South Broadway Street and 1st Street Southwest. And it's also known as Lot 16A of Block 88 of 4th Railway Addition, and it was just recently platted. The applicant is seeking a conditional use to construct apartments. The zoning is C3 Highway Commercial District, and the ordinance does require a conditional use permit for apartments. As you can see from the aerial, the property is predominantly green space, but there is a portion of a parking lot that was there with the existing apartment building that burned down a number of years ago. And as you can see, it's a general mix of commercial and residential in the neighborhood with apartment buildings that are already in place to the west and to the north. And the applicant is proposing a 12-unit infill apartment complex on the site. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing as well if there's anybody here to speak on behalf or against.
Does this meet all of the setbacks and everything?
Yes, I believe it will meet the setbacks, and I did a preliminary look at their parking, and it looked like it would meet that as well.
Perfect. This would be a great place for an apartment, I see.
Yeah, recall when the apartment building was there that burned down. It has been quite a few years. I don't suppose we know when exactly that was.
I'm not certain of that. Okay, 18 to 19 years ago is the feedback
Yeah.
I'm getting. Thank you.
Anybody here to speak in the public while we have the public hearing open?
It's actually going to be two 12-plexes, so they're going to be side by side.
Oh.
It's going to look just like this, so they're going to be mirrored.
Oh. Okay. The applicant has let me know it'll be two 12-plexes on that particular lot.
Is that with this drawing? Is that what we see on that? As two 12-plexes?
Correct. They're going to be mirrored.
They're not going to be attached at all?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
that's not what we have in this packet, is it? Or did I miss something in the packet? I see some really nice apartments where they're all on a couple of floors, but I don't see where they're,
It's going to be two 12-plexes, and the 12 units are going to be connected, but there's going to be two separate buildings
oh, okay.
of 12 units.
Okay, that makes sense. Now when you say it that way. It's good to know, I suppose for fire reasons and stuff, right? Chip? Just the way they wanted it? Okay.
I think that, Bonnie, I think the layout is on that,
Yeah.
right beneath the map page,
Oh, okay.
on the right side. Is that, I can't see the applicant, but is that what we're looking at, the two buildings?
That's correct.
Looks like maybe a walkway or a courtyard in between them.
Yep, that's correct. There'll be a courtyard.
Oh, okay. That'll be nice. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
And the
Yes, sir.
setbacks for that will be fine for fire and those types of things, Chip?
Well, we're approving it right now for, this isn't the final plan. Staff will review and everything. This is for you guys blessing the ground that this is okay for them to build it, and then staff will review and make sure everything is, up to code.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important consideration here is what we're talking about is whether the lot is appropriate from a conditional use aspect. Of course, it's still
Yeah.
going to have to go through the normal building permit process and meet the regulations regarding the actual structure that gets put on it. Mr. Kays, I believe you had a question.
I had a question, and maybe Stacy could answer this. 212 unit would be, is there enough parking spaces on the 212 unit? I can't remember how many parking spaces per unit is required.
I did look at that, but I was looking at it as a 12-plex, and it had an abundance of parking for that, so I would assume that we'd be okay on that with the 40 spots. But I will check that again.
I'm counting 41 parking spaces in the diagram, and if we have 24 units, are those all one-bedroom apartments? Are they two-bedroom apartments?
I believe there's a combination. It looks like we have some one bedrooms and some two bedrooms and a studio. But we will double check that before a permit is given to make sure the parking is adequate.
Is the parking like, if for a two-bedroom, for every bedroom, do you need one parking place? Or is it like 1.5 parking places per apartment? I forget.
I'll have to look it up, and I think my ordinance is up there, but I can look it up for you.
Any additional comments from the public? Anybody else in the room there to speak? At this time, I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion for action by the board?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the request as applied for, then citing the letter B, off-street parking and loading areas to meet the minimum requirements as long as can meet the required number of spaces. Is
Thank you,
there
Mr. Case.
also are there any tree planting requirements with this use, or is that only in the residential zone?
I'm not sure on that, but we will check that before time of permit. We haven't done a full site plan review at this point in time yet, but we will make a note to check that as well.
If there, pardon? I guess my motion would be then to also conform to any landscape requirements as well.
Second, Colleen.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion from the board on this?
I did find this, the parking requirements, and it is 1 space per bedroom. So we will count that up and make sure that it complies.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
If there's no additional comments, we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Oletsky,
Yes.
Dolly,
Yes?
Ford,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
and Dargich Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item 4B on the agenda, we have a conditional use request. If you want to take us through that one as well.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a conditional use request. It is at 722 West Kemp Avenue, and the applicant is Josh Y. Is that correct? That's right. Okay, thank you. Good job. The applicant seeks approval of a bar or tavern to be located in the C3 Highway Commercial District. Wise Pizza is currently being established at the property, and the owner would like to have a bar tavern as part of the business. The Board of Adjustment did approve a conditional use back on August 8th of 2012 for John and Paula Maloney, and at that time it was for Iron Range Smokehouse, with the stipulation if the restaurant service ownership changes or if the restaurant service is ever to be dropped, the conditional use will be revoked and a new application shall be required. And there was some previous minutes attached in the packet for reference. The previous conditional use has expired as it has not been used in the past 12 months, and the business has changed, now necessitating a new conditional use application. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this if there's anybody here to speak on behalf or against.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak.
Yes, please proceed.
Josh Y. With Wise Pizza. If anyone has any questions, I'm available.
Are you also going to have video lottery in there?
I do not plan to have video lottery. That's not the direction that I'm looking for at all.
So this is going to be more when somebody sits down for a pizza, they can have a cold tap beer and have some, it's not going to be like all night long type.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be a family-style restaurant with the option to have beer or malt liquor beverage. Seeing people have maybe one or two, but definitely not a bar by any means or anything of that nature.
Do you know the hours of operation, Josh?
So the hours of operation are yet to be established, but right now we'll be looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 to 9, Friday, 11 to approximately 11, Saturday, 11 to approximately 11, Sunday, 11 to 9, but those hours could vary. Should never go past midnight in that type of establishment, a restaurant. So Friday and Saturday may be later hours, but nobody else is open past 11 o'clock midnight now, and I wouldn't see any reason that I would be, but I'm not going to be open till 2, 3, or I guess I won't be open till 2 in the morning, I guess.
Are you doing any, so if I order pizza, can I order the beer?
I'm not sure what the ruling is on carry out, but so no, I don't think off sale. I don't have any plans for off sale. It would just be on sale in the establishment.
Stacy, does that make a difference in the license that he applies for if he wants to have on and off sale?
I believe it would, but I'm going to let Director Von Height answer that.
And I will defer to our city attorney, Matt Roby, who I believe is online.
Mr. Roby?
I was sleeping. Sorry.
I thought I saw his feet up in there when I walked by.
My understanding is the licenses have changed recently, and so I believe what you probably are getting is an on-off sale license that would allow folks to come in and get you could sell a 6-pack of beer to go, that sort of thing. So that's my understanding now, is that those licenses are combined.
And yeah, I mean, that's not something that I even considered, but I guess if it goes along with the license, it goes along with the license. But that's not anything I'm considering at this point.
Mr. Y, are you planning on having any outside seating there, or is it only going to be inside the establishment?
I believe that I'll have only inside seating. Brandy and I discussed the possibility of outside seating, but I believe with the setbacks and the requirements, I think it was discussed that it will not allow for that just because of the setbacks. And maybe Brandy could touch on that more if she's available.
I think she's online.
Brandy, are you there?
Yes, sorry. I was obviously sleeping too, but except my screen was hidden. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the reason with the outdoor seating that Josh and I had discussed is that it will actually be within the public right of way.
That's to the north of the building there?
Yep.
Yeah, it does look like the building is pretty close to that.
I wonder if he could apply for, like downtown, we do cafe permits where we allow restaurants and bars to utilize the public right of way for outdoor patio area, if that would be a possibility.
And that would be a separate request.
Yeah, and that is done just administrative.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would support that. I think, God hope that COVID's still not here next summer, but I really think we as a community need to be looking at offering as many opportunities for outdoor dining and, pick up, drop off, those types of things that we can help our restaurant business clientele in the city. So I think whatever we can do to help that, we should be looking into.
Thank you, Mr. Case.
Mr. Dolly, this is Ford.
Yes.
I'm curious about the parking requirements. Are they adequate?
In this particular one, it's not necessarily a change of use, but we would be taking a closer look at that as well. But being as how it's the same use, typically the parking would carry on with the lot and that previous use. And I think I do. I think I have some more.
Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a topic of conversation in both this property in the past and the one across the street there. We do have a fairly wide right-of-way for that road that's adjacent, and some of those parking spots that are called out on the map actually extend within that public right-of-way. But because these have been, grandfathered in and had this use over the lifespan of the building, we have included those typically in the count of the parking spaces.
So how many parking spaces are required, notwithstanding anything that's grandfathered in? Are we going to be over or under? I'm just curious to know.
I'll take a look at that. So it'd be one parking space for every 3 seats. So it would depend on the seating.
And so right now I have seating set up inside the restaurant for 44.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask somebody to do that math for me real quick.
So it looks like we have 30 parking places called out on the overhead there. So
Yeah.
that's ample.
Seems
ample
like
parking
it's
for that seating.
sufficient. Yes.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
even if they do go to some patio seating outside and take up some of those public right-of-way spaces, there'll still be plenty of room there for parking for everyone.
Yes, it appears that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if we're at one parking spot per 3 seats, 30 spaces, you could have 90 seats. If I'm doing that math right.
Yeah. You're faster on the draw than I am.
I don't know that you could fit 90 seats in that building, though.
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Director Von I here. I had a quick question also for Josh related to the parking, and I should know this, and maybe staff does, but is there some kind of a cross-parking agreement with the property to the east, or is that also owned? Is it under the same ownership? I guess I'm not familiar with how that's situated. I just wanted to make sure you were protected in the availability to use everything shown on your proposed map, which looks like it's all under the same ownership as your property. Is that correct?
That's correct. I own everything all the way up to the building to the east. Even I own their steps in the upper northeast corner.
All right.
So, but yeah, so I own everything all the way. So that's all my parking.
Great, thank you.
Any additional comments from the public while we have the hearing open? Any additional questions for Mr. Y from the board? All right, thank you, Mr. Y. I'll close the public hearing at this time and look for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Bonnie. Have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second. Further discussion from the board. If there's no additional discussion, we'll take a vote on this conditional use.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ford,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Dargits Johnson,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Stacy. Thank you, Mr. Y.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item 4C on the agenda is a variance request.
Okay, I'm gonna get the proper thing up on the screen here. So this is actually a variance request. It's from Randy Grunwald. It's at 100 North Lake Drive. An application has been submitted to construct an addition onto an existing structure that is located 2 feet from the side property line to the east, and I'll try to bring that up on the map here. So it's this building right here that we're talking about. The proposed addition would align with the existing structure, so the degree of nonconformity for that side yard setback will not be increased by this proposal, as it would remain in alignment. The owner would like to expand the structure to allow for a convenience store in this particular case. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Where are the gas tanks going to go on this one? Are they going to be buried, or are they going to be above ground?
I'm not sure. I don't have any information on that.
Wasn't that addressed in here? I thought I read that someplace.
It might be.
Or maybe not, but yeah, it did say where they're going to be at.
Go ahead and open the public hearing. Is Mr. Grunwald in the audience here?
Not in person unless he's online.
Because isn't this whole area in a flood zone?
Yes.
None of it is above.
I believe it is all in the floodplain, but I can double check that.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Fire Marshal Primus, what I understand is it's just, there's not gonna be any additional pumps or anything. From what I've seen, it's, the tanks are there already for the boat fill, and this little accessory building was for the selling convenience for the people coming off the boat ramp or the dock.
But are there already tanks there, Chip?
There's a tank above ground.
And it meets all of the requirements and
Yep,
stuff?
it meets
Okay,
all the
that's
safety.
good to know.
All the safety requirements are
Met.
done, yes.
So this is just gonna be for the boats, not for me to drive my car up and fill her up? Okay.
Chip, is there any specific requirements from a building construction standpoint with the proximity to the tanks?
There are, but the tank meets all the UL ratings for being that close to the structure and the
Okay.
side yard. That's the underwriter's laboratory. Meets all the safety. It's an extra, it's a special tank.
Understood.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
quick question from staff. This original structure was constructed at some point in time in the past. Was there a variance granted to that individual structure years ago when that was originally placed there? And then the other quick question I had, has received any correspondence or phone calls from the adjoining property owners?
Thanks, Mr. Kays. I have not received any phone calls from any of the adjacent neighbors, and I did not find anything in our records to indicate that there was a variance given at one point in time.
Could you find a building permit?
I don't recall finding anything. But we can do more investigation on that.
So basically, we have a non-conforming structure that we're looking to expand the cubic feet of that structure, but it's really more of a non-standard approach because it's not further exacerbating the setback infringement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I see in the letter from the applicant too, that there is a note that they've worked with their neighbor to the east and that there was no concern. So that could be why we haven't had anybody reach out to staff. There's a note in here too that there would be privacy fencing to help keep down the noise from disturbing the adjacent property. But I didn't note the privacy fence called out on the site plan.
No, I don't believe it is called out on the site plan.
So I believe there is chain link fence there today.
Right here. It says chain link fence here.
That wouldn't typically constitute a chain link fence as a privacy fence.
Other quick question would be, I'm going to guess that this building or this structure, this use would be an accessory use to the principal facility. Is that how we're looking at it? Or if somewhere down the road, Mr. Gruenwald wanted to split that lot off and sell that business, could he do that?
I actually looked at it as the main use because it is a convenience store, so it wasn't necessarily incidental to the restaurant business. But the side yard is the same either way we look at it.
Okay.
And this is Brandy. And if he were to subdivide that off, he would not meet minimum lot size requirements. Not sure if the lot is 20,000 square feet today, but we wouldn't allow it to be subdivided off by a replat.
They could always ask for a variance though, couldn't they?
Yes.
Mr. Dolly, this is Ford.
Yes.
I'm curious about the parking requirements for a convenience store of this size. What would they be?
I believe it's based off of the square footage of the store area there. Is that correct, Brandy? Do you have those figures?
Yep. So it would be 5 per 1,000 square feet for a community commercial building like this, I believe. And So, and I think that the intention of this is to serve the people coming off of the lake, not necessarily, because everything to the north and the east, there won't be, I don't think, like, basically the building is oriented towards the lake, and the east and the north will be, I mean, I don't think that the intention is to draw in people. Now, that might happen here and there, but I don't think that is the intent.
But what are the parking requirements for a building of this size?
Yeah, I gotta look at what the square footage of the building is here.
That would be my question. I mean, is the existing building banquet facility have adequate parking already, or do they have leftovers that could be applied to this? Because if, as Stacy was saying, this is being treated as a standalone use, wouldn't it also require standalone parking requirements, regardless if it's beach users using it predominantly or not?
We're going to check on that parking here for a moment. It does appear, at least off of their site plan, that they have a pretty substantial area that could be parking.
It's just my recollection that in the past, there have been issues with the amount of parking associated with this property already, that there aren't adequate parking spots for what's already there. That's what my question really is headed towards.
Sure. That's definitely a good concern. And looking at on the aerial map, at least, I'm not sure that they have any striping, or I'm not sure when this was taken. So it would be helpful to know.
It happens a lot that when they're having a party, and that's what they're for, people end up parking across the street.
Okay.
And then crossing a 4-lane highway.
Well, and along Highway 20 in the no parking zones.
That's definitely could be a concern then. But we'll, I'm not sure, Brandy or Heath, if you've came up with any parking numbers on this one.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, that is right.
And then I guess follow up to the number of required parking would be, are the parking places shown on this site plan all legal parking places? Do they meet the size requirements? Because we show 89 parking places, minus one where the proposed addition takes up a spot.
Yeah, it's hard to tell off of this, but I mean, it looks like it's 9 by 18. That looks sufficient. And then it's hard to tell with the drive aisles, but they do look sufficient, but we would check into that a little bit more.
So with the total square footage of the existing building and the proposed addition, we're looking at 1,248 square feet. And there's 5 stalls per 1,000 square feet. So that equates to 6 1/4 stalls. We would round that up to 7. It requires 7 parking stalls.
And they have 89 total.
But
There
then
are 89 total shown on this site plan.
But then when you got the banquet hall with that square footage, does that number of parking places meet that parking requirement?
So the 89 shown minus the 7 reserved for the convenience store would leave us with 82 for the banquet hall.
And then that's where the existing building gets a little complex, because you have the restaurant and then the banquet hall facility. So then it's 1 parking spot that will cover 3 seats for the restaurant. And then the banquet hall we would probably treat as I don't think that we specifically call out a banquet hall facility, or we would just treat that as the community commercial. But even if, say that we did treat it all as community commercial, which I'm not sure which one would be more conservative, they would need 44. If the whole building was community commercial, they would need 44 parking spots for the square footage of the existing North Shore building. So then they are They are showing that they have more than sufficient space. The hard thing is that just not having the numbers of the seats to break it out.
And the fact that, I mean, the time that this really comes into play is when they're hosting events there and you have a huge influx of people during the time of the event.
Right.
That's true, Blake, but if you happen to drive along the road at one of those times,
Yep.
It's a serious situation when people are either going into the building or leaving the building, crossing that road after they've been partying.
I agree.
There's a safety issue there.
Mr. Chairman, Heath here. If I believe Stacy made this point earlier. Yeah, I'm not certain the extent these stalls are striped on this property. I know that I've seen other communities make it a request to properly stripe the parking lots according to their plans. I don't know if that's been done. I haven't been by here recently, but that could be something that would make a level of improvement in the right direction here to formally substantiate the appropriate parking stalls. Because I think on this easterly side of the parking lot, just from my personal experience, it tends to kind of be no man's land and people kind of parking wherever they want to, which can obviously diminish the effect of the number of stalls available for the users.
Yeah, there's certainly an efficiency gain there when you have properly striped parking places. I agree with that.
And that is something, if the board so desired, could add that, I believe. Because it really should be striped anyhow.
Hey, Chip, what does this city, do they have anything to say about density and parking or anything like that for this building?
Basically what Brandy's, Chip Primus Fire Marshal, basically what Brandy was saying, we do have an occupancy calculation, for the building, but we look at it as people will park where they'll park, and if they don't like they're going to carpool, they're going to make the decision. I just think this applicant is looking for, it's more of an accessory use to the boat landing that he has going on there, where people buy gas, they'll go buy chips and whatever convenient food. So, and if the parking lot's full, I'm not going to pull off the highway and go try to get to that convenience store. I'll drive 2 more miles down the road to the other convenience store. So I think the applicant was just looking for another convenience for the people out on the lake.
Thank you, Chip.
We do have the public hearing open. Is there anybody else there to speak on behalf or against? If there's none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
I guess one of my concerns here is the fact that we don't have any record of how that building even got put where it is. Because it probably wouldn't have been allowed. And now we're taking a non-conforming structure and expanding upon it, I guess. And I understand his need for that. I get that. So with that being said, if this were to be approved, I think that the parking lot striping is a necessity. And I also believe that the privacy fence, other than a chain link along that east edge, should be implemented at this time. No.
Yeah, certainly the parking lot aspect of it, that would be a net benefit to not only the proposed use here, but the overall use of the property in general. Any additional discussion by board? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
This is Fire Marshal again. I think we talked about this building months ago or a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, that it was going to be maybe a tiki hut or something, and I can't recall what the conversation was, but we have discussed this, is what I was thinking on. They had a plan for it, and I thought everything went past through, but I'm just trying to see if anybody else remembers this now, this conversation.
And we could certainly do a more thorough look through our records.
Well, and even, so the building would still be considered non-conforming even if it was permitted and had a variance at the time. So really just looking at it today and then knowing that they're adding on to a non-conforming structure should be, you guys should be able to make a determination well enough just of if it's okay to enlarge the non-conforming structure. Because it's 420 square feet, how it exists today, so it wouldn't have met it wasn't less than 200 square feet where it could be 4 foot off the property line. So just things to consider there.
Rhonda, I'd like to make a motion to approve with required parking, striping in the parking lot, and a privacy fence more private than the existing chain link.
So a solid fence.
Yes, I would like to see a solid fence.
Mr. Chair,
Motion on the table. Yes, Mr. Case?
before there is a second to the motion, I was going to ask our legal counsel a question. Matt, I was curious, is there, because we're acting as the Board of Adjustment, we have, and it's a conditional, it's a variance, do we have the ability to add a condition to the variance that would require subsequent transfer of this building or structure to be done in conjunction with the principal banquet facility, so that going forward they would be carried together?
You mean, so you tie them together, essentially? You couldn't sell them, you couldn't parcel it off and sell them separately?
Yeah, even though I believe staff saying that, you know, we wouldn't allow that, but a subsequent board could always grant a variance, and then you'd have two uses who are currently sharing parking spaces, and it would avoid that potential pitfall down the road. And I was just curious if that's something you think that's within our purview to do. I would like to make an amendment to ask the offer of the initial motion to amend their motion to allow for that.
I'm not sure how you'd enforce that, though, to prevent the sale of a portion of your property. I mean, you could say if they sold it, they couldn't come in and do anything with it, but I'm not sure if we have the ability to prevent parceling off and sale.
Unless you were to treat this whole property as some sort of a development agreement. Maybe it's not a big deal, and I mean, I would support the motion as it is, but if this was something that we could do, it would assuage some of those fears of mine. But
I'd have to maybe give that some more thought. I'm not really seeing how that would apply.
That's fine. Without solid recommendation, I withdraw that idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kays. Mr. Roby. So we do have a motion on the table. Then do we have a second?
I'll second that. But I do have a question. Do you know, are there restrooms in this convenience store?
I'm not sure, and we don't have detailed plans at this point in time that would indicate one way or another.
I'm trying to recall from
Restrooms
memory.
are not a requirement.
But I think that he, I can't speak. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not certain.
I know that, in North Shore, they have the bathrooms just on the east side. And so I would think to limit, like, that bathroom works out well, that if somebody coming off the boat or the beach, like, that they were able to use the facilities in the restaurant.
Well, other than he just stayed in here that that convenience store might be the only thing open during the winter, you know, certain times. But again, I mean, that's not, they don't have a bathroom. I don't know that that's a deal breaker. I just was curious.
Well,
If
and
they're
I-
taking some of that space, I mean, they're trying to cram a lot into this tiny little building when they talk about kayak sales and jet ski rentals and selling convenience store items and gas. So, I mean, it's gonna be a lot run out of a little building, which again is kudos to them, but I just,
Well, and I think that even in the winter, if that is the only thing open, I think that is set up in North Shore where they could keep that bathroom open and just have the rest of the facility locked.
But a restroom isn't a requirement for a convenience store.
No, the building code, the occupancy load, for the amount of people, doesn't require a restroom.
Any additional comments or discussion by the board before we take a vote?
This is Ford. I
Yes,
just
Ms.
feel like there are a lot of uncertainties about this particular project. We seem to have quite a few unanswered questions, and I think another one was just alluded to when we're talking about renting kayaks or that sort of thing. Where will those be stored? Are they going to be stored outside? Is this building large enough to hold that kind of thing? I don't know that I have enough information on this whole project.
The board could certainly table this until a point in time where the applicant would be available to help answer some of these questions.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I would just emphasize too that while these are all very good questions and some may be appropriate and applicable to the determination of a variance approval, I would also like to assure the board that things like restroom requirements and things of that nature would absolutely be checked off at the building permit level, and maybe a less pertinent to the variance request that's at hand before the board this evening. I just wanted to put that into perspective too, just to assure the board that those would be checked off at the building permit phase.
so the kayak storage would be, I mean, something that, you know, so down the road, next summer, he brings in the kayak stack and has that sitting outside, which is taking up a couple of parking spots now. We've just lost some parking. You know, and again, I'm not trying to feel negative about the idea. I'm just, you know, what's the next step? And that's, I think, like Diana is saying, we just don't have all of those answers, but I know that he may not know what he's going to be trying to, you know, do for sales. So when he comes, he doesn't have to apply for a different operating license for this, correct? I mean, it's just, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we really don't have any control on what he does do for, you know, whether it's canoes or kayaks or whatever is stored outside.
From a building permit standpoint, we would. Now, a kayak rack, whether that would even require a building permit, I'd have to look into our codes to see. There are certain minor structures like that may not even require a building permit. If there were things getting built or erected on the site that would compromise the parking requirements from being met, that is something that we would. We don't proactively inspect for those kind of things, but if we were to observe them going on, we'd definitely call it to the owner's attention, or it would be on a complaint basis for us to follow up on it. If all of a sudden those 7 stalls are half filled with kayaks and racks or something like that were to happen. So I apologize, I don't have a definitive answer to that, but that may or may not require a building permit, and if it does, it's absolutely something we would check off at the building permit phase to ensure that the location was proper for the site without having other negative impacts. If it's not required to be permitted, then it does, just like with any other land use in the city, it opens it up for the flexibility of the owner to do certain things with their land within reason that are not that doesn't necessarily trigger the requirements of a building permit or other regulations.
Yeah, any of the C3 uses would be allowable, but we would look at, any kind of like outdoor storage to make sure that it wouldn't interfere with things such as parking spaces that are required, met screening requirements of the district, also weren't in the way of any fire hydrants, things of that nature, to make sure that the site was compliant with the rules.
And I believe the applicant was going to try to call in here. I don't know if he's on Teams yet.
Let's just take a quick look here.
I don't see him on the meeting here. From a standpoint of, could he effectively rent kayaks and operate the sale and rental out of his primary facility? Is there any substantial difference between doing that and having a cashier in a secondary building?
Mr. Chairman, if I understand your question right, you're more or less asking, is there a substantial difference between the use of a convenience store versus kayak sales out of the same building?
I'm saying if we didn't have this proposed addition here and he's talking about doing it out of that building, could he not do the same based out of his current building?
Yes. Yes, he would be able to do that because that use would fall in line with the C3 under the permitted uses.
And so the difference really here is where's the cashier? From a standpoint of outside storage, I think the issue remains regardless of which building the cashier is based out of.
I think you might be coming in right now.
Randy Goodwell.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
We've had some questions. I'm not sure if one of the board members would like to reiterate some questions for you, or if you were able to hear any of those prior to joining.
I was not. I wasn't aware of this meeting.
So Randy, in this, in your convenience store, are you planning on having the boat rental and stuff, the kayak rentals and stuff? Are they going to be right there on site or off site?
Correct. No, it'll be on site.
So they're going to be taking up parking places?
Oh, I hope so. Either that or both places.
I think the question, Randy, is where would you be storing the kayaks that you would rent?
Oh, there's a fenced-in area right by the gas pumps that they already put a fence around.
And that doesn't take away from the available parking places on your property?
Oh, no.
Randy, are you planning to have bathroom facilities in the convenience store?
Yes, there will be one.
Is there one already there?
Not yet. The lines and everything are there, but I haven't made it yet, obviously. I made it a little bigger than what first came out because we don't have any room for all the chairs and tables. We've first of all, since the COVID hit, we've had to pull a lot of chairs and tables out of the main area, and we're kind of separating, distancing tables, and business kind of warrants that now anyway. But a lot of the tables and chairs that we have, we're gonna put into the storage, which will be part of that plan that's ahead of you, in front of you.
So what size of a building are you planning on putting on?
I want to apologize. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's a little more than double the size of the current building there.
Okay, right now the existing building is 14 by 30. And then what I see here, it's going to be 22 by 37. Is that the proposed addition?
Yeah, that probably sounds right. Here again, I'm on the Black Hill and bring that stuff with me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, 22 feet by 37 and a half is what's shown on the proposed plan.
And you're not expected to go any larger than the proposed addition, right?
We would take a look at that. If this were to be granted, it would only be allowable for that size. Come the time of building permit, we wouldn't allow a larger structure to be built without coming back in front of the board.
And I think something to note too is on the site plan where the proposed addition does only occupy one additional, one parking spot. So it is providing for indoor storage and potentially would clean up the property to some extent, if for storage anyway. Not that it's a mess.
Mr. Grunwald, in your letter, you had noted that you would have a privacy fence separating the properties. That was included in the motion that we have on the table. We've not yet voted on this action. Your intention was to install a privacy fence between your property and the neighbor? Is that correct?
Looks like
I think we lost him.
Call was maybe dropped.
Here he is, back in the lobby.
Hello again.
There we go. We got
you. Guys there? Yeah, I'm
Can you
on
hear us?
Perry Peak. You guys have all been here. I'm sure you know it's probably not the best place to get a.
Appreciate you
phone
calling back
service.
in. So I was asking a question in relation to the letter. You had noted in there that you would have a privacy fence between your property and the neighbor to the east. We do have a motion on the table that includes that requirement. So you're okay with that intention?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And the other thing that we discussed here as a board earlier was the parking available on this property really holistically, not just in relation to this, but looking at the total required parking for both facilities. We have a count of 89 parking places showing on the site plan. Looks like one of those would be consumed by the proposed addition, so we have 88 places. I know parking has been a challenge on this property in the past. So one of the things that we would like to include into the motion, if we approve it today, is the requirement to stripe the legal parking places as noted to optimize the available parking there.
How much time do I have to do that? Because I'll have to blacktop it or concrete it to do that, right?
Isn't
I
the
had to
parking
redig the-
already
I had to
paved?
dig out the whole sewer, which
Oh.
tore up half of the, 2/3 of the lot. That between that and the other side, I guess. There's probably close to half of the lot's been tore up because of sewer went in the water.
What's your intentions to? Are you going to repave that or?
Well, I've called on the paving of it, and it's pretty expensive. So the blacktopping, and I think I might be just putting concrete on it as I can afford it. Is kind of how I'm going to proceed, I think.
And it could be so this could be a part of the building permit, which then is good for a year. So he could have a year. And then if it was something where it needed an extension, there are extension options too in the ordinance for commercial projects, so.
Well, I'll certainly do it as soon as I quit losing so much money out there, for sure. What this is trying to do is trying to help generate more dollars for the, the gasoline's been going really well. I'm going to have to I'm gonna have to pull the, you guys, you're familiar with the area, I'm almost sure. It gets a little shallow in front of that gas tank. That's and they spent $70,000 or $80,000 on that, and I spent about, well, $40,000 on concrete, or well, more than that, 50-some thousand on concrete already. In front of that to raise that level up. Oh, what was it? 24, 26 inches from where it was. I can't remember the exact number right now, but what I did is I put a seawall in where the gasoline tank is, and the gasoline tank is double concrete insulated, so if ice hits it or something, it's going to be really hard for it to bust open. And then what I was going to do out this winter, I was going to dig out in front of that gas tank. So it has a long hose on the gas tank right now. It goes to the end of the dock, which is about, I don't know, 60 or 80 feet long. I can't remember the number, but it goes out there quite a bit. But if you're a weak guy like me or an elder person, that's quite a haul to haul that out to the end of the dock. So what I'm going to do is remove some of that rock and sediment a little closer to the shore, so they'll be able to park closer for the use of that gas tank. I don't know why I told you that, but that's part of and then we're going to go out with floating docks this next year instead of and maybe that isn't even important to this committee, but I was just telling you where my funds are going to be going for uses for the next year. So what I'm saying is striping that parking lot. It might be at least a year, if not a little longer, if I need to extend it. I'm just being realistic. I could stripe half of it tomorrow.
Can I make an amendment to give them 2 years to stripe the parking lot?
That would help me, for sure.
Yes. If you want to add that into your motion, that would be fine.
Yes, I would like to amend my motion to include giving Randy 2 years to mark the parking lot.
It's for my benefit. I know that, to paint it for parking. It's for my benefit, so I want to do it as soon as I can afford to do it, no doubt. You've seen the way that people park out there. At least I have, anyway.
Yeah, that was the crux of the conversation that we're having here. We don't want to exacerbate the issue. So, Bonnie, you've made an amendment to your motion. Rhonda, I think you had offered a second on that. Do you second the amended motion?
I will second that.
Is there any additional questions for Mr. Grunwald?
Mr. Chairman, Director Von Eyre here.
Yes, sir.
If I could ask, Mr. Grunwald, you mentioned, again, just for the sake of everybody's sanity in using this facility and the parking and how sometimes it can get a little haywire, would you object to striping what you know you can as far as the existing pavement that's out there that won't be disturbed? Is that amicable to you to stripe what you know won't be disturbed any further?
Well, I certainly can, but it will be all disturbed because, to be quite honest with you, right now it's blacktop. So I think I'm probably going to do concrete over everything. Blacktop and concrete aren't too much apart now. It doesn't seem like. I've had some quick conversations. I haven't had any bids or anything come out, but I've had some quick conversations on per foot. For foot and everything. So, I'm almost thinking if I do replace start replacing the driveway or the parking lot, it's going to be all concrete. So, all of the pavement there that's currently there, the blacktop is going to get all removed. And then I'll have it sloped a little better. Right now, it kind of slopes towards the building a little too much. Maybe I can make them. Either way, I'll have them slope it a little different. And I have it set up for that. I don't know if you noticed, I put drains where I raised that concrete up a foot or whatever it was, I put drains going out of the parking lot underneath the pavement, so the water runoff would go. It wouldn't build up in the parking lot. It would go through the parking lot. So I had them angle it so it would work. Had I put concrete in there, trying to get it off the neighbors. My goal was so it didn't run into the neighbor's yard, so it would just run through on our area. The neighbor's been really good about that. I don't know if she's been approached or not, but I'm not having any windows on her side of the building, on that side of the building, front or the east side. And then we're going to put the fence. We're going to have a privacy lath going through the fence. That's right now. It's what's it called, chain link. And I've ordered some privacy things to go in the chain link, so you know it's harder to see through.
You're going to weave it through the chain?
What's that?
You're going to weave like vinyl strips through the chain?
Yeah, yep, those privacy strips going in there. And that's not really what bothers her so much. I think where you can see where the most of the people that probably annoy her, I would say, would be where I'm building the building. So that privacy there where the building goes out, that's going to take the place of the fence. So you know, I knew it's never been an issue in the past for the neighbors, but I'm hopefully the business will get better in the summer there. So hopefully privacy, she'll like that extra privacy from that larger building, you know, and it'll help the quiet too. You know, putting that building there will help the outside patio we have. That'll deflect some of that outside noise towards her too. So trying to think of her. She's been really good and comes in a lot, so I don't want to make her mad. No, it should be a good addition to the lake. What I've been trying to think of is all these other lakes around have, and I've talked to the guy that, well, I haven't talked to him personally, but I'm interested. The one that worked out of City Park, there's some with canoes and paddles and stuff. I'm not sure the name of the gentleman, but I'm thinking about just taking over his business and moving it to the North Shore place and just buying his canoes or kayaks and floatables or whatever he has. And then I'm also going to get some, like what I'm finding out is when you get so many people on your boat and you're short safety vests. So I was going to rent out safety vests. I was going to do the whole deal. So if you're short on a safety vest, you can fly over there on your boat and get more, you know, either rent or buy cheaper ones too. So you have them available on the lake. I don't know, I'm just trying to, I've been on the lake now for 10 years and I'm just trying to think of the things that I'm always forgetting.
Yep. Any additional questions for Mr. Grunwald? Diana, did you get all your questions addressed?
Yes, I did. Thanks for checking with me.
All right. Well, then we do have a motion on the table. The motion includes a requirement for the parking lot striping within a 2-year time frame and the privacy fence to separate the east property there. Any additional discussion?
Just for clarification, you guys are okay with doing the opaque screening slats instead of for the fence? Okay.
Yes, I think those look really good, and that they're vinyl and they're thicker, and yeah.
Yep. Just wanted to clarify.
Okay. We'll go ahead and proceed with a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Culhane,
Yes.
Ford,
No.
Kays,
Yes.
Oletsky,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is there a concern that I should know about with Barb that she doesn't, because I can make any changes if there's a problem.
No, the motion carries.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say if there's an issue you guys want me to look at, I'll sure do it.
It carries with the conditions that were noted about the parking lot striping and the privacy fence. So.
Okay, well, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your time. Bye.
Moving on to item 5 is open public comments. Is there anybody in the room to speak to the board on something that wasn't on the agenda tonight? No. We will move on. Any new business?
No, I don't believe so.
Any old business?
No.
A motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.